Welcome everyone. My name is Brian Fravel. I'm Vice President of Marketing at Velo, and our webinar topic today is how to build, manage, and grow your sales enablement programs. I hope that it will be useful for you. We have a couple templates that when we send out the slides within 24 hours of this presentation, you'll be able to use and customize for your organizations. So, fairly simple agenda today. I figured we'd start with, when we say sales enablement, that can sometimes be an ambiguous term, so let's define it so you know what I'm talking about and when are you ready for it. And then I mentioned I have a framework that you can use to get yourself started, start planning your programs. I'm going to share a couple case studies and best practices, and within there I have another framework that you can use, and then I'll wrap up with some traps and mistakes that we sometimes see companies make that hopefully you can learn from and avoid them yourselves. So when I say what is sales enablement, there are some formal definitions out there from some of the analysts such as Forrester. Here they talk about, I like that phrase, having a valuable conversation with the right set of people at the company. And so sales enablement is supporting your sales reps to have that conversation. IDC's spin is a little bit more content focused, where it's about delivering the right information to the right person at the right time in the right format, et cetera, all with the goal of moving sales forward. And so I tend to be a super simple person, and so as I talk about sales enablement in this webinar, what I'm really talking about is the processes, the tools, the training, and the coaching to help your sales people perform better. At the end of the day, ultimately, we want to measure our sales enablement programs on, am I helping to drive more revenue and more sales? Common problems that we see sales enablement professionals tackling, and I'm sure many of you have these same problems. The age-old content problem. I have too much content, I can't find it, my sales reps waste too much time. As a marketer, I'm constantly getting phone calls, hey, I need this, where is it? Even though you've told them 10 times where the sales portal is and it's easy to find. Many reps wing it, aren't prepared, can't sell value, so if they're not well trained and they're doing minimal prep before the next meeting, chances are that meeting is not going to go well. So how do you make sure that they're well prepped ahead of time? Good reps can sell on value, and price is a minor thing. Price is easy to sell on, though, and so many reps still default to price. But how do you equip more reps to sell on value? Because that's one big way to increase your sales. And then, of course, especially if you're on the marketing side and you're creating content, statistics out there is only 30% of the content is actually used. Which 30% is it? Because I don't think there's any marketer out there that wants to produce bad content, and you want to optimize and maybe double down on that 30%. So these are all common problems that sales enablement professionals tackle. I'm sure many of you on this call are challenged with all, or at least a couple of these. Simplistically, I think there's really two primary benefits of sales enablement, and as you start to create your programs, you'll want to think about both sides, and it's very possible in your organization, maybe you have a ton of waste. You're more like 20% of marketing content is getting used, and so maybe you want to focus your first efforts on efficiency or reducing costs. And things here are saving time, reducing waste. Maybe you have process inefficiency, you're requiring your sales reps to do too much data entry as opposed to real selling. Or maybe it's an alignment thing. You have a wall between sales and marketing, and you want to break down those barriers and start the conversation. Oftentimes we see that companies start here. They have a lot of things in place, they aren't working, they're wasting time and money and resources, and so they tackle there. But there's also a performance aspect of it. And that could be, I want to find new prospects that are likely to buy from me. I'm going to close more deals, I'm going to close them faster, and then when I onboard my new reps, I want to get them achieving quota as quickly as possible. And so, as I mentioned, a good sales enablement program has both the efficiency side and the performance side. But as we go through the webinar, we'll also talk about you probably can't tackle everything that's on this slide from day one. And so what you want to do is create a plan that prioritizes your biggest needs, whether it's on the performance side or the efficiency side. So one last piece on this, on the intro, and then we'll dive into some tips and some frameworks. You may have a formal sales enablement program. Maybe you have the beginnings of one. Maybe it's part of someone's job and you're hoping to make it better. And so as you're either pitching management to invest in sales enablement, or maybe it's invest more in sales enablement if you already have it, here are some key things that we found are key trigger points for organization. One is you have a decent marketing budget, but you're not seeing improvement in sales. And also, oftentimes what this looks like is marketing is just raining down the leads, throwing them over the wall to sales, but it's not increasing sales like you would expect if you're investing in marketing. Oftentimes that's a sales and marketing alignment. It may be a messaging problem, it may be your definition of a qualified lead isn't agreed upon. But when you have budget and you're still not increasing sales, you probably have a problem that can be tackled by sales enablement. Second one is an obvious one. Your reps aren't spending enough time selling, they're doing other things, searching for content, taking too much training, data entry, whatever it may be. Your goal should be, how can I get my reps selling as often as possible? Third one is, if you have new reps coming in, but they're struggling to get to their first dollar, and it's taking them too long to get to quota. Especially in high growth companies, we see this as a big problem. They had a kind of informal onboarding program. They start hiring reps like crazy and never really formalize that onboarding. And then their new reps struggle largely because they're not trained well enough to sell value. They're not equipped. They may be great salespeople. They just don't have the tools to support them to get to quota faster. If you're finding your sales team is selling more on price than value, that is clearly an area that sales enablement can help. And it's something that most organizations struggle with just because, as I mentioned, price is easy to sell on. Value takes some skill and some training and some coaching. And then if you have aggressive growth goals, if you're doubling the sales force in the next 12 months, I would definitely make sure you have a very formal onboarding program designed and ready to go, because you will be overwhelmed, and if you don't have one, chances are your new reps, back to the third bullet, are going to struggle to get to their first dollar and then ultimately quota. So these are all good. These 5 key things are clear signs you're ready for some form of sales enablement, hopefully something more formal than just a portion of someone's time. So let's talk about getting started. And I like to view it in kind of a 6-step implementation plan. And I don't think any of this is rocket science, although it's amazing as we work with many companies how oftentimes companies jump into deployment before they have a plan or alignment or prioritization. So let me walk through them real quickly. One is define the problem. What's the business pain? Maybe to go back to my earlier one, is it a cost efficiency issue that one of your biggest challenges? It is a performance issue. Yes, the answer may be yes, all of the above, but I think it's important back, and we'll get to it in the prioritization. You've got to prioritize. The second piece is alignment, and I think this is probably the key piece. If sales and marketing don't sit at the same table and agree on the challenge and how you're going to tackle it, I can almost guarantee you that you have a very low probability of being successful. And having senior executive sponsorship on both the sales and the marketing side is critical. part of that alignment process, you want to prioritize. Is our biggest challenge reps are spending too much time looking for content, or is it onboarding new reps? And focus your efforts there. Unless you have a giant team, you probably can't handle more than 1 to 2 big projects at a time. So plan them out in some sort of timeline. Technology can play a huge role in helping you deliver a lot of sales enablement programs, from onboarding and training to content management, as well as a whole host of tools to help your sales reps do everything from cold prospecting to prioritizing leads. There's a ton of technology out there, but I put that in the 4th phase because it's not until you define a business plan, aligned on what you're going to, and prioritize things, that you can say, okay, now we can go evaluate technologies because we know what problem we're trying to solve. We talk to a lot of people who will tell us, I'm just seeing what's out there in terms of the technology landscape, which isn't necessarily bad, but we always caution people, unless you really have defined what you're trying to solve, evaluating technologies, you're educating yourself, but I'm not sure that you're going to get much out of it. Technology is a means to an end. Once you're ready, then deploy your program. If your program has technology, there's probably an IT department to get involved. I like to tell people, think of it as like a product launch that you would be launching to the external market. Have a plan, kick it off in style, make a big deal about it. Salespeople are busy. I'm sure you all understand this, that it's hard to get their attention. Oftentimes they roll their eyes, they're like, oh geez, marketing, sales enablement, sales operations, whatever, another program du jour, system du jour. And so if you don't have a plan to launch it big, and then ongoing promotion, weeks after the launch, even months after, I'd argue you should have a promotion plan a full quarter after you launch a program. Celebrate successes and small wins along the way to keep the momentum. I have seen dozens of programs and tools launched only to fizzle out within a quarter because they were launched, there was no executive sponsorship, there was no ongoing promotion. So even if you have executive sponsorship, that ongoing promotion piece is critical to keeping your momentum. So there's the 6, like I said, this wasn't rocket science, but it's 6 steps that I think if you follow and hold yourself accountable to, do I have each one of these, you're far more likely to be successful in the program you roll out. In terms of the key elements for a sales enablement program, again, I like to break things down simply. I think there's 4 key areas. There's technology, there's processes, there's content, and then there's organization. I'm going to go through these in a little bit more detail and give you a little framework or template you can use to plan yours out. But before I do that, just a reminder, sometimes people get enamored with process or the technology, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. At the end of the day, everything you're doing is to support a sales team so they can perform better. And so you may have the greatest process in the world, but if it's not going to work for the sales team, then it's a bad process. And so don't lose sight of the people that are at the center of your solution, and those are your sales reps. So here's a framework you can use, and I took those 4 key elements of a sales enablement program and then broke into sub-elements. So when I'm talking processes, I'm talking things like, do you have a formal onboarding program? Most organizations probably have some form of a boot camp, classroom style, whether it's face-to-face or web-based, and some sort of content repository that you can send people to. Necessary, but I don't think that's enough, especially if you want them to reach quotas sooner rather than later. Very close to onboarding is ongoing training. We see a lot of people in the technology space who have many products to keep up with, competition's constantly changing. Do you have an ongoing way to keep people trained and up to speed on your products as well as the marketplace? Third one, coaching, I think is one that probably is underserved in most organizations. Many organizations will talk about it being important, but it's left really up to the sales manager one-on-one with their sales reps. And we all know when push comes to shove and time is at a premium, this tends to be one of the things that gets lost in the shuffle. And I think that's unfortunate because it's probably one of the most impactful. And so this is one in particular where I think using technology can solve some of the problems that finding time for a one-on-one, if I'm a manager and I have 8 sales reps, finding time in one-on-ones to do good coaching is going to be difficult on a week-to-week or even month-to-month basis. But if I use technology, then it can be a little bit more ad hoc. Lead scoring and handoff of leads. When we talk about sales and marketing alignment, this is probably the number one thing. How many of you are in an organization where marketing says we generated a gazillion leads and sales says the leads suck? Marketing says sales doesn't follow up with the leads that we're delivering them. Or marketing says sales doesn't follow up. Sales says that's because they weren't good, we have too many, whatever it may be. I think having a process on how you score and how you hand off and how you're going to measure and modify on an ongoing basis. Probably I'd recommend quarterly. If you're not doing that, I would recommend doing that because the market doesn't stay static. So what you were doing in Q1 may no longer work for you in Q4. And then lastly, measurement. If you're going to do some of these processes, how do I know my onboarding programs are working or my training programs are working or my coaching programs are working? So measurement is everything from what you're probably measuring, things like leads to pipeline to business, but there's also measuring your onboarding, training, coaching programs. On the content side, I think if you have established content, probably the first thing to do is sit down and do an audit. Do you know what's being used, who's using it, how good it is, what isn't being used? If you don't have a tool in place to measure that, you can start with simple surveys from sales, get feedback, and then as you get more mature, implement technology or systems that allow you to measure usage on an ongoing basis, equate usage to delivery into the pipeline, and then ultimately to sales, and then have that ongoing ad hoc feedback mechanism so sales can give you both positive and negative feedback. And then there's the delivery of content. Again, if you're a mature organization, you probably have a story that goes something like this. We have 3 to, 8, 10 content repositories. Nobody can find anything. There's no way I want to tackle a consolidation into one content repository. I can never get the whole organization to agree to it. So this is another place where technology can help you. There are many technologies that allow you to just leave your content where it is, but help you prioritize delivery of the content based on a sales conversation at hand, and oftentimes integrated into something like a CRM. And I'm going to give you a case study of exactly that scenario and how a company solved that. When it comes to technology, I'd say most organizations, not all, have CRM, and that's largely information capture and managing pipeline. Probably have some sort of marketing automation, and those two are kind of the basics. Hopefully, out of those two systems, you're able to do something around analytics. There's always more to be done, and there's add-on tools that allow you to get more sophisticated. But then there's also seller support around efficiency and effectiveness. So there are tools out there that help. If you're drowning in leads, it helps your reps prioritize which leads should I focus on now. And that may be a lead, or also may be something that's in the pipeline and I'm trying to close. So that helps sellers prioritize their day, who they're working with, managing their time. There's tools that help you deliver the content, tools to help you onboard and train and coach. So this goes back to my earlier slide. Prioritize, and then technology oftentimes can help you solve that problem. And then finally, organization. I probably should put organization first here, because I think before I dove into processes or content or technology, I'd ask these questions first. Is one, who owns sales enablement? Awesome if you have someone with the title Director of Sales Enablement. You're ahead of a lot of companies. Oftentimes it starts out in kind of a hybrid product marketing or sales operations role. But I think if you define someone, hopefully an organization, hopefully you even have a team, that's where you start on the sales and marketing alignment. And oftentimes that sales enablement function should be the glue between sales and marketing. There's resource and budget. Your prioritization is going to help this. You're not going to be able to do everything you want to do, so prioritize based on whatever resource and budget. And then define roles. And I would say in the role definition, if you're lucky enough to have, say, a product marketing team delivering content, a sales enablement team, and the sales organization, you should, when you have role definition, each one of those organizations should be involved. Too often we see marketing / sales enablement working by themselves, defining things, but they really don't have alignment with the sales piece. And so I think whether you have some sort of monthly sync or review, sales and sales management need to be a part of your sales enablement programs. Otherwise, you're developing programs and hoping they adopt it. So hopefully that framework gives you something to then do an audit of your programs and help you prioritize where you want to go next. There's a couple must-dos for a sales enablement program, and I would view this as baseline. There is certainly a lot you could do above and beyond this and get a lot more sophisticated and more detailed, and we're happy to share some more information that dives deeper into some of these topics. But there's a couple things that, in my mind, just must do. And I've already hit this a couple times. Aligning sales and marketing, agreeing on objectives and roles and responsibilities, and making sure everybody is a part of whatever review process you have, where you're looking at the programs and metrics and making adjustments. And then a key piece of that is lead scoring and handoff process and ongoing look at that and tweaking of that needs to be a joint effort. Second piece is having ownership and resources and setting expectations. If you have a quarter of a person working on your onboarding program, you're going to get what you put into it. I realize resources aren't unlimited, so this is where priority comes in. Formalizing some of the key support functions. If I were starting with an organization that said, okay, this is important, we're going to formalize sales enablement, the first place I would start is onboarding, closely followed by training. A good onboarding program will help you save money, and you don't you don't find out 9 months down the road that this rep isn't going to make it because you didn't support them with what they needed. You reduce turnover, and it probably has the biggest impact, I think, to bottom line, especially if you're growing new sales reps. Closely aligned to that is obviously training. And then coaching, I think, should be formalized. And this is, like I mentioned earlier, this is one that very rarely is formalized, but I think there's a lot of benefit in formalizing it and measuring it too. A content strategy, establishing where content lives. You do not need to tackle this and put everything in one single repository. If you were there and you only have one, great, congratulations. Many organizations don't have that luxury. I've seen many consolidation projects over the years that have resulted in complete failures, and within 12 months, shadow content repositories pop up all over the place. I think in using technology to pull from multiple repositories and delivering the right piece of content to a rep when they need it is more important than consolidation. And then finally, establish what systems and tools you need, whether it's CRM, marketing automation, or maybe a coaching tool, maybe an onboarding tool. In my mind, these are some of the very basics that you need to tackle. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the webinar on this, but we did want to highlight this. We created a little sample onboarding template, and this would be something that we would assign a new rep in addition to, say, face-to-face boot camp type training. You can take it and then tweak it as you wish, but we've built this out based on our experience with some of our clients and helping them use technology, things like video or micro training, to make sure that the reps, after a long 8-hour day of drinking from the fire hose, are practicing and engaging, because that's how we learn, is being able to engage, not just sitting in a seat and drinking from a fire hose for 8 hours a day, five straight days. So again, we'll send out the slides with the webinar replay, and you're welcome to take this and make it your own and tweak it specific to your organization. So let me share 2 case studies. The first one is from Gazelles International. And for those of you that aren't familiar with them, they are an executive coaching organization, so they're a service. Their product is sending highly qualified coaches and working with executive teams on a variety of challenges. They have a slew of offerings. So their challenge was they had a decent amount of turnover, so you get new trainers. You need new trainers to get onboarded and earning revenue faster. If your trainer isn't out in the field coaching an executive team, then they aren't earning revenue. So there's a real cost for them to have a slow ramp for a new trainer. They had very manual, heavy face-to-face onboarding program, traditional, what you'd see. Everybody comes in for a week and does the face-to-face. It was kind of the fire hose effect. They were trying to cram too much information too fast in a short period of time, hoping that the trainers were going to remember it all, then sent them out into the field. And then the problem was they had no way to track progress or results. Did my trainer actually learn anything, and can they apply it out in the field? And oftentimes the way they would find out whether it worked or not was after they sent them out to a client, and then the client gave them feedback. And when the client gave them poor feedback on a trainer, oftentimes it was because they hadn't been onboarded well. So their solution, first thing they did was they aligned sales and marketing. Marketing was not necessarily creating content that was aligning to the sales training that was being delivered. They used technology to assign pre-work prior to the boot camps. And so what they were able to do is get rid of a lot of housekeeping type things, basic information that, frankly, you didn't need to sit in a classroom to learn. You could read on your own. And so that turned then the boot camps from kind of very instructional one way to boot camps became, okay, come prepared to apply what you've just read and learned. And boot camps became very interactive practice sessions. So they're actually teaching their trainers how to be trainers in an interactive classroom setting and getting real-time feedback from the class. And then they implemented a way to track competency testing, and they send out a series of quizzes and trainings post-boot camp once they're out in the field, so that if someone, for some reason, didn't retain the information or didn't quite get wasn't getting what they wanted them to do, they could either give them extra coaching and training or decide maybe they're a bad fit for the organization and get rid of them faster, so they save time. So the results here, by formalizing this and using technology, they reduced onboarding expenses by 25%, and they got their new trainers out up to competency and out in the field in front of a customer, earning revenue 20% faster than before. My second one is a sales content challenge, and this is from Corvo. They are in the semiconductor space. They literally have thousands of products, so you can imagine as a sales rep keeping up to date with all, and of course this technology was constantly changing. Multiple content repositories, sales wasting too much time looking for content, oftentimes using old content because they would just give up and they'd use whatever they had used in the past. And marketing, when they had new product launches and wanted sales to focus on it and get information out, they just weren't able to do it. And so we here at Velo work with them and help them create a single source of truth for their content, which was embedded in Salesforce. We didn't consolidate the repositories, so to this day they still have multiple repositories, but they're actually able to use Velo to pull from all those repositories and then only show a sales rep what's relevant for the sales conversation they're about to have. And so that now the right content finds their reps versus the other way around, the reps trying to find the content. They've reduced the wasted time looking for content. And now they're able to also modify their content strategy because they have analytics on who is using what is helping deals move through the pipeline. They've been able to eliminate content that's not being used, and they've been able to double down on the types of content that is being used and actually helping to win deals. And so their results, they estimate over 20% time savings, not just for sales, but for marketing too, because remember, marketing oftentimes has to field calls. Hey, I can't find this. I have a meeting in 15 minutes. Can you send it to me? They no longer have those calls. So two case examples, two different usage models, one onboarding, the other one more of a sales content usage. Some traps to avoid that we see oftentimes in organizations is they look at the efficiency, effectiveness, and the performance side that I outlined in the beginning, and they decide they're going to tackle that entire slide. It just ends up being too much, and you either get bogged down in process and you never get it off the ground, or you fail because you don't have the resources to implement. So pick one or two things and go for the small wins. I mentioned this at least 6 times now, aligning sales and marketing. If you're going to implement a sales enablement program, sales management and marketing management need to agree of the scope, ownership, resources, and they need to be involved in ongoing measurement. If you don't have a sales methodology, you don't have sales playbooks, your content strategy is probably going to be all over the map. So I would recommend, although we didn't spend a ton of time on playbooks, it could be a webinar in and of itself. I think these are really key. I'm not saying you need to do a 100-page, PDF-type playbook. There are ways to chunk up playbooks into smaller pieces that are usable. But having a repeatable methodology and delivering it through playbooks is very important, especially if you're onboarding new reps and you want people to follow a similar sales process. And then finally, remember, sales training is not a single event. We see this very often. You do a product launch. Friday morning, everybody attends a webinar for 1 hour. You say thank you. You launch them back out into the field, and there's never any follow-up, refresher training. Chances are within 30 days, they're going to forget about 80% of what you train them on. So training should be an ongoing process, just like onboarding is. Kind of onboarding is really ongoing if you think about it. As a sales rep, you're constantly learning new things because your product changes, the marketplace changes. So hopefully some of those frameworks will help you organize your programs. A few resources here if you wanted to dive deeper into some of these topics I've talked about, such as onboarding, sales training playbooks, or even how do I navigate all of the sales tech that is out there. You can visit our website and it is available. All of these are available in various forms, briefs, webinar replays, etc. So with that, I want to thank you for attending. We really appreciate it. Within 24 hours, we'll have the webinar playback as well as the slides out to you. And so again, thank you and have a great day.